Good morning, everyone, from Dunrovin Ranch, Lola, Montana. You're here today with Suzanne Miller, the ranch owner. Welcome to all of us and all of you in our community. Part of our ranch life, of course, is maintenance of all kinds of things, and including our technology. And one of the things that's been happening here recently is our river camera has gotten a little bit of smudging on it. So I'm going to show you right now, if James will put me onto the river camera, what I mean by some smudges. And then, James, you're going to walk on down there with a cleaning cloth and give her a clean, are you not?
That's right, I am, and we're gonna go down. It's a little bit of an operation, as you're gonna see. We have to take a few bolts out of the arm that holds the camera up over the river, and we pivot it around, and you get a nice little roller coaster ride as we do that. And then you'll see me wiping the camera down. So. Suzanne, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk a little bit more about what we're doing. I'm going to head out and get my tools and a ladder, and you'll be picking me up on the camera here shortly.
Very good, James. I'll see you coming down the hill. But as everybody can see, when the light shines towards the camera, you can really see some smudges on the dome of the camera. And you know, this is to be expected. It's out there in the weather 24/7. It gets a lot of rain, gets some dust, it gets, the elements just start to build up with a little bit of dirt and grime, and it just needs some cleaning off. We do this periodically with the ranch camera and the Nest camera as well, although that requires a bucket truck to go up there. We had hoped to do that this time when the chicks were banded, but that was sort of a last minute operation, and we didn't want to prolong the chicks being out of the nest. And also, James was pressed into being a chick wrangler. So instead of cleaning the camera and fixing a little bit of our audio system up there, he was pressed into that action, and which of course was the priority. So we still have some maintenance to do, and we'll get to that this September when we take the bird feeders up after the ospreys have all left for the winter. But as you can see, as I scan across the river, you can see the smudging in front of the trees, for example, right there with the light coming through it. There's just, some serious smudges on this river camera, and we'd like to get rid of those. So as James was indicating, it's a bit of a project. It's not just, take a rag down there and wipe it off. Our river camera is mounted on a cantilevered pole that goes out over the river. And this enables us to see, all the way down upstream, which of course is in this direction. We can see long ways upstream, about a half a mile, or maybe even more like 3/4 or a full mile up to the very end up there. And we can get a similar view downriver. And the only reason we're able to do that is because the camera itself is cantilevered out over the river. We had to find just the right spot where there was a little bit of a land that jetted out from the rest of the riverbank, enabled us to put this uh, cantilevered tower there. We had a guy build it, a guy named James Garland, who was here for a while. Love is telling us that at times there are spider webs. So look for some spider webs down there, James, because it's true. At nighttime, we see things very differently because of our night light. Let's see if I can go up towards the bench and get a glimpse of James coming down our way. There he is. I can see him right on the path here. Here he comes with his ladder and his tools. Give us a hello, James.
Well, howdy. So, yeah, we have a ladder that we keep near the bench bird feeding station, and we just bring it down here for maintenance. It's a pretty quick walk, and I've got my cleaning kit and some tools with me here.
I see you have your companion as well.
Absolutely. She's always looking for something to help with. Right now it's rolling in the grass. So So what we do here, and you're kind of looking at a area where we have all the electric wires and all the electricity and data comes into, and that's kind of where a big part of all this happened. We had to install a whole lot of power. Well, not a lot, but enough to get power down here, and then be able to get Wi-Fi down here too, which is a little bit of a trick, but we've done it, and it seems to be working fairly stable. How long has this been here now, Suzanne? About 2 years?
Well, I think we put it
3
up,
years?
yeah, in December of 2018. And for
Wow.
those members who have been here a long time, they know that this has been a dream of mine. I just really wanted to get a camera down by the river for a number of reasons. You know, the river is an ecosystem just all by itself. It just, you know, there's a sign. Read what that sign says, Jane, that you're looking at there.
Yeah, it's and I'll take a picture of it before I head back up and post it on chat here. But it says Dunrovin Ranch has got our logo. It says River Cam, where water flows, so does life.
So true. So very true. And it brings a whole different array of life. Of course, the fish and then the birds that depend on fish. And then, you know, all the wildlife comes down for drinking. So it's just a highway for wildlife. And of course, we get to see our osprey fish there sometimes. It's not as, you know, we'd like to get more camera operators involved, but this particular camera is a little more difficult to operate. So we don't have our volunteer camera operators enabled at this point. We'd like to have them enabled, and at some point we will change this out for one of our access cameras, but this is a little different. And explain, James, how this is, the whole camera dome moves as opposed to the camera within the dome.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. It's called a positioning camera, and the reason for that is it's mounted actually with the camera on top of the motor instead of underneath of it. And what it does is it allows us to have complete views of the sky above, which is really cool when we're trying to track osprey and stuff like that through the air. So that's pretty handy, and it gives us just some exceptional zooming views. We don't have any real limitations on the hardware side from from the perspective of meeting a stop limit and seeing, you know, the body of the camera like we do with our dome cameras that are kind of mounted facing down. We don't get to view straight down, but we get pretty good views of the water, and we can still see fairly well in that down position. So you just saw me crawling around under there. Maybe I dropped one of the locking nuts here and had to find it in the grass while I was giving you that description of the camera. So this isn't a quick release system by any stretch. I have to use a couple wrenches, and we take a couple bolts apart. And Suzanne, I'm going to try to swing this arm around and hold it, and you may be able to pivot back and kind of see where it's tied in. And so it allows this entire arm to move. Now I've got the arm at a full almost a 90-degree angle to the stanchion here. And you can see where we've got these.
I'm going to go around one so you can see the difference from where it's mounted. You see, if we had the camera mounted here instead of over the river, you would not be able to see as much of the river because the bank would be in the way. And that's why we have this arm. And I must say that this arm was a collaboration between James Garland, James Wasson, and myself. We kind of cogitated and looked at various places to put it and how to get out beyond the river shore so we could see more of the river. And this is what we came up with. And I have to say, it's been working pretty well. Don't you think, James?
Yeah, so far it's been exceptional. I think the hinge device here could be a little more elegant, but I think overall it's super sturdy. I don't have any problems with that. And it's actually pretty easy to move around. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just moving this arm around. And what I'll do is I'll position it so I can get a ladder just on the other side of the fence from where I'm at now. And I should be able to reach the camera and be able to clean it. So I just need to make sure this tilts back, and then I'll move my ladder over. And what's great about this arm, and we did go through several different iterations of what the design should look like. What's great about the arm is we don't have to get in the water to do this. We don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. So, Suzanne, I'll have you turn the camera over towards me so I can kind of get a little bit better angle. That way I'm not manipulating the motor too much and causing any sort of mechanical issues.
I can see your
All
hand.
right. Yeah, there you go. Just like that. So what I'm doing is I'm spraying it with a little bit of distilled water here. That keeps us from getting any mineral deposits on the lens. And then I take a microfiber cloth. And this area that I'm cleaning right now is the lens cover right in front of the camera. And so that's an important thing to clean. But we also have spider webs that come along the upper part of the camera, which is just above the camera range there. And this camera has built-in infrared lights, and they're kind of hidden behind kind of an opaque cap here. But when it gets dark, those lights automatically switch on. And the reason why we're able to have such great night vision with this camera is because the lights move with the camera, which is something, this is the only camera we have here at Dunrobin that does that. Certainly not the only camera with that capability on the market, but it's the first time we've used one here. And it's really awesome because that allows us to see black and white imagery at night, pretty far out there. So it's pretty neat. All right. So I think I've got that mostly cleaned up. All the spider webs are removed. That should allow us to not attract too many more. We have to clean this thing about, at least 4 times a year, I'd imagine. Every few months. Sometimes more, depending on the weather. All right, Suzanne, I'll make sure you can still move this camera. Make sure I didn't jostle it or anything.
Oh.
Great.
Yep.
Perfect.
Going around here. Yeah, unlike the other cameras, James doesn't have to clear a full dome. He just has to clear the dome in front of the lens of the camera because it's the whole camera moves. So the whole operation is a little different.
Yeah, and if you want to spin the camera around from this angle, you can get a little bit better view of our situation here behind the camera. And obviously you're going to see a different view in the riparian area because we don't have all those trees in the way. You can see where we put in this new gate back here for some of our trail rides. I did that just not too long ago. We cut in a trail right through this area here, and we're able to get the horses along this area between the fenced off area for the cattle and the river. And so we repurposed this gate, and it works pretty slick. It only opens one direction, which is in, and that keeps it easy for the wranglers to manipulate it, and they don't come crashing through. You'll also see a little bit better detail on the pole that we've got here. We put in a 4x6 post and put that in some concrete, and we have our power for our conduit, and then we've got an antenna up here that broadcasts back to the bench bird feeding station, and then that gets relayed onto the ranch office where all of our tech hardware is. So we have hardwired power, 120 volts, just a standard GFI outlet, and then we have wireless network back. And the question is, could we have done wired network and maybe had a little faster connection or more stability? And the issue is a matter of distance. It's well over 1,000 feet from here to the ranch office. In fact, it's closer to about 2,000 if we were to measure it out and have everything in ground. And the only way to get cabling back that kind of distance is to use fiber optic cable for the network, and that is extremely expensive and a little bit difficult to work with. So we're sticking with wireless. The wireless hardware has been pretty stable for us for the most part. We just have a little extra maintenance we do occasionally to keep that up and running. But fortunately, we do have power here, which is handy.
Well, not fortunately, James, you were the one who dug the ditch and pulled the wire. It's because it happened.
Yeah, it was a labor, that's for sure. It was. I think I can still feel the vibration of that ditching machine as I was pulling it along. We hit a few rocks, especially up by the bench, and but once we got down here in the floodplain area, I buried the 5-foot trencher piece, and there's just 5 feet of the most beautiful topsoil you've ever seen down here. It's just phenomenal. It just goes and goes and goes.
Before you move us, hang on. We can show people the sign. The sign that says.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, where there is river, there is life. And there's also a sign about who made it, James Garland and his company. He did a great job. He was a lot of fun to work with too.
Yeah, he did. It was he's the one that came up with kind of the majority of the concept here. I'm not a metal worker, so all my ideas were out of wood or prefabricated steel and stuff, but he comes at this from a welding perspective and was able to do some serious customization, which was pretty cool. I think he had fun with it.
Yeah, I think he did too. And I'm just thrilled with the way the cantilever worked out, because it really gives us a different option of seeing so much more river.
Yep, and so that just guides back into place there, and then I've got a couple bolts that just tie it in and lock it into place, and it works out pretty slick. We do have, you've noticed the little gray, kind of flexible tubing that's on the top of the rail there, and that carries the audio and the data and video connection for this. And the reason why it's in that flexible tubing is for a couple of reasons. One, just protect it from, degradation by sunlight and things like that. Also just gives it a little extra protection as we're moving it back and forth, and gives it room to move inside that cable, and it's nice and flexible. And anything around here has to be well protected from the elements. There's just a lot of things that happen throughout the year here between the heat and the rain and snow and ice and wind. It's just there's a lot going on. You will see kind of down a little bit lower underneath the hinge side down here, there's a gray box tied to the vertical component of this stand. And that was originally going to be a microphone in there. In fact, it still could be. But we ran into some issues with this particular installation that were unexpected. And those issues were that every time we moved the camera, you could hear this really loud ka-chunk. And it took a while to figure it out. If you look at this closer, I don't think you can see it from the camera, but I put rubber stoppers in here. I've isolated it from the steel to try to keep it from resonating, and we were just still getting super loud audio every time you'd move the camera. And what was happening is, because this is hollow steel, it's tube steel, the camera, when it moves, it has a stop, and those small vibrations would echo through the steel on this mount, and they would be picked up by the microphone. And it was louder than anything else going on out here. You could have a bird chirping super loud, and you'd still hear that camera sound go ka-chunk every time it would stop and move. And so we actually relocated the microphone, and it's actually located in one of these trees here. And you can kind of see the cable on this side that runs through over to one of these cottonwoods. And I'll walk over there real quick. And the microphone, in fact, they're hearing this on the river cam, but the microphone's right here. And we've got a little windscreen over it here, but it just sits right here in the cottonwoods and just sort of hangs out in there. And that separates it from the metal stanchion that we've got, keeps the vibrations to a minimum. If you know what to listen for, you can still hear it when the camera's moved, but you have to listen really close. So we think that's an acceptable compromise for the moment. It's amazing what these microphones will pick up.
Well, you've done an excellent job of putting all this together, James. And I don't know if people understand just how fortunate we are to have James with his broad experience in both audio and live streaming. He's an exceptional guy. I'm really glad that he has fallen in love with Dunrovin and decided to move in.
Yeah, well, it's what is exciting about it is it does take a wide range of skill sets to pull all this off. And there's a lot of disciplines involved. Of course, you've got the electrical work, you've got the media work with the video and audio component, and then you've got the structural component, which is putting in infrastructure and even the welding that goes into putting this tower together. So it really is a team effort, even with the small crew that we've got. It's a very diverse amount of skills involved to pull all this off. And of course, you at home viewing and watching us and encouraging us every step of the way and saying, what about this? What about that? That always pushes the limits of what we thought was possible, and we do that much more. So
yeah, I've always liked the fact that this has been a collaborative effort with our community. We love suggestions, and sometimes both James and I roll our eyes and think, well, maybe we can do that. That would be great. So James, I have one more favor to ask while you're down by the river. And that is there are a couple of T-posts right in the river underneath the camera, metal T-posts, and they're just sort of unsightly, and it's really just garbage that needs to be pulled out of the river. So if you can go over to the beach and come back towards the camera, we'll follow you to get rid of those pieces of rebar, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely, and I'll see if I can get down any closer from where we are. Now that the river's low enough, I might be able to pop down here along the bank and not have to walk all the way up the beach.
I have to say, James, that our little kingfisher perch has turned out to be quite successful. I've been happy with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's worked out pretty well. All right, I think I've located a couple of the metal posts here.
Yep, that's what we're talking about.
So,
they're just kind of right there in its way.
Yeah, I'll stack these up. We'll make sure we get them all out of the way. There's still one or two in the ground. Those may take some doing to get out. There's that one. What happens is these rust out, and then as the erosion takes stuff away, it uncovers the stuff that was rusted out under there.
I think this is the remnants from a fence that was here long before we purchased the property. The river banks are always moving and eroding and things changing.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Good for you. I really appreciate that.
And we've even got some remnants of the old fence that's here with some of these wooden fence posts that are hanging down, and that fencing, there's some mesh wire here, and that's pretty integrated into the bank and the foliage and everything. But yeah, were there any other metal posts out here other than those?
I don't think so. Those are the ones that were bothering me and have been for some time.
Great. Well, I will I'll throw these up on the bank so I can retrieve them from the other side here. And then I can take them and dispose of them.
Bona's become quite the little water dog.
She has, and I've been getting her ready for this new thing we've got coming up next month.
Yeah.
And trying to get her ready for a fetching competition. Let's see what she's got in her. Buna, go get it. Go get it. Go get it. The first swim of the day is always the one that takes a little extra cajoling, but now that she's got it, she'll probably want to do this the rest of the morning, I'm sure. Come here, Buna. Come on, get your stick. Go get it. It's getting away. Go get it. All right, come on. Come on. Come on. So, yeah, what is happening? It's at about 3 weeks from now, isn't it, Suzanne? You've got a special broadcast coming up.
It is on the 23rd. We're going to have what I'm calling Jewel's Memorial River Romp. Those who remember my Jewel remember how she loved the Bitterroot River. And one of the things that really saddened me is that the river camera was installed after she had gotten so old. Because as a younger dog, Jewel was just an incredible retriever, just incredible. You know, sometimes even at flood stage, she'd go in that river and you could throw the ball anywhere in the river and she'd not swim to the ball, she'd swim where the ball was going to be. She could judge the current and swim to where the ball would just float right into her mouth. So we're going to have a memorial retrieval contest, and our own Mackenzie is going to be the judge. And you know, if Mackenzie's the judge, it's a free-for-all. One of the rules is the only way you can be disqualified is to get mad at your dog. So this is going to be an all-breed contest, and he's got some prizes lined out for the least good retriever, the best retriever, the most reluctant, the cutest, the wettest. It'll be fun.
Yeah, you know, Buna's all right going in and fetching it, but she's got the return part of it is still a little bit lacking. She likes to take it away and do her own thing with it, but she's getting there. Once she gets into it, she knows the game, and she's still fairly young. She's only 2 years, just coming up on 2 years old in September, and we've had her swimming now for just over a year. She learned it almost exactly this time last year. So she's been doing well. She navigates the river. When we go canoeing, she can swim right behind us, and she's become quite a swimmer.
That's great. I remember you coaxing her into the little stream, you know, but she didn't want to get her feet wet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go back up here on the beach and grab those fence posts and start cleaning up here, and then we'll be able to call this chore done. And I think you've probably got some other elaborate thing lined up for me next week. So we definitely need to make sure folks stay tuned for all the excitement that we've got planned, because there's always something to do around here.
Well, and this afternoon, Cherie is going to join me, and we're gonna at 2:00 this afternoon. We're going to be talking about banding the ospreys and kind of catch people up to what happened this year and talk about the importance of banding. So I'm going to continue on a river camp tour here, James, until you can get back and switch us off. but we're seeing the river clearer than we have in a long time. You really did a fine job. I want to thank you. And I want to also draw your attention to somebody calling you a Renaissance man. I'd say that's just about right. The Renaissance guy. Jack of all
And
trades.
they haven't even seen me play drums, so.
Oh, don't tempt me, James. You know you shouldn't say something like that in front of me. You'll get kicked out of the activity log. Yeah, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that?
I might need more cajoling than just that, but
Yeah. Well,
we'll see.
Maybe some beer from your Gatораtor.
Yeah, there you go.
It's really looking much, much better, James. Yeah, the nice clear views. Those smudges are really distracting. This is terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So, yeah, I'll get this hardware cleaned up here and head up and join you back in just a few short minutes here. But I'll let you go ahead and do a little ranch or a river tour here, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes.
So while we're here, I'm going to take people up on the mountain and see if we can't see any wild horses. It seems like every time I see the wild horses is when I'm driving back to the ranch from down the road, and I see the horses and I think, oh, I got to run, get on the camera and show people. And then I get distracted. Something happens. I meet somebody in the driveway, and pretty soon I'm doing something other than what I intended to do. So let's just take a look up here on the mountain and see if we can't find any. One of the things I'm going to draw people's attention to are these kind of lines on the side of the mountain. I'm going to come up close to them. You see these lines that are kind of all parallel? Well, those are remnants from what was called Glacier Lake, Missoula. Um, Thousands of years ago, during the glacier age, a glacier created a dam along the Clark Fork River near the Montana-Idaho border. And the dam, the glacier was so solid that it created a huge lake behind it, and a lake that was larger than all of the Great Lakes combined. And then periodically that dam would break, and water would rush from western Montana all the way across Washington state and flood it. And so these are former lines of the shores of Glacier Lake, Missoula. And what's really interesting is how they came to understand all this. The geologist who figured this out started by asking himself, why were there rocks, these huge big rocks from western Montana and Idaho out in the middle of the Palouse prairies in Washington state? And he started going backwards, and there were also these big scoured out areas that were clearly created by a big rush of water. And it was through that kind of walking things backwards that he came up with this theory. And at first he was somewhat scorned within the science people, thinking, no, you're crazy. Well, he wasn't. And if you look at this now, you can see these lines all over western Montana. And they're at the same elevations consistently. They are clearly lines made by a lake. They are absolutely parallel, and you can just see them very clearly here on the mountain behind us here, these kind of light colored lines. So this was all underwater at one time, fresh water. And these floods occurred repeatedly, hundreds of times, I think, or at least more than 100 times, and really had a big impact, of course, on the ecology of not only western Montana, but of eastern Washington as well. So let's go up on these mountains again, and let me see if I can see any wildlife, any horses or one time, not when we had the camera, but I have seen cougars on these mountains. I've seen elk and deer. You've all seen elk with me at times, I know. And it's just a real pleasure for us to be able to look at these mountains so closely with our river camera. The smoke is a little bit less today than it has been, which is a relief. We've had quite a bit of smoke in the valley in the last few days, but you can actually see the clouds today, which is a very big relief for us, particularly since it's going to be even hotter this weekend. So the smoke and the heat is, it can be very problematic for everybody. But let's see if we can see some fish right under the camera. That's one of the cool things about this camera is you almost can get right down into the water. We have in the past seen a fish or two when it's nice and clear like this. You can see the rocks in the river. I always call the Bitterroot River a friendly river, and I use that term because it's so clean and it's there's not a lot of rapids anywhere. The only time it's really not friendly is in the springtime when these cottonwoods sometimes fall down and create debris in the river, and they can create sweepers for people who canoe or boat down the river, which can be very dangerous. But other than that, this is just a wonderful river that is full of fish, as you all know from Swoop and from the fishermen who come here, and full of life. So if James is back in the office, I'm going to let him sign us out. Are you there, James?
Absolutely. Here I am, and I'll go ahead and put you back on the screen and let sign us off here. But it was great doing a little bit of a ranch tour that needed to be done anyway. That lens was pretty dirty, so glad we made that happen. And we'll be back next week at the same time with another ranch tour.
Thank you, James, very much, and thank all of you for joining us. And we'll see you this afternoon at 2 with Cherie. And I will be talking about our wonderful osprey fins. Thank you. See you then. Bye.